Hello everyone, thank you for attending our presentation about our new Bioactive for glucose intolerance Pep2Dia. I am Joanna Moro, a bioactive clinical trial specialist at Ingredia.
And I'm Julie Auger, specialist in application for bioactive ingredients. So we will start this presentation with some definition and data about diabetes and glucose intolerance. So the diabetes is a chronic disease which induces high blood sugar levels, and this not adequate sugar level will provoke different trouble like kidney disease, eye disease, cardiovascular disease. The authority estimates that 1 out of 11 adults has type 2 diabetes in the world. Today, 460 million of them has type 2 diabetes, and in 2045, we will reach 700 million of people with type 2 diabetes. Before to have type 2 diabetes, there is a specific period with glycemic dysregulation, and we call this period glucose intolerance or pre-diabetic stage. And the authority estimates that 1 out of 13 adults is glucose intolerant or pre-diabetic, and in this population, 80% of them, if they do nothing, they will develop type 2 diabetes in 5 to 10 years after to start with glucose intolerance or pre-diabetes.
So what is the pre-diabetes or glucose intolerance? In the case of pre-diabetes, there is a progressive resistance of the liver and other organs to the action of insulin. And in order to stabilize blood glucose level, the pancreas, which secretes insulin, continue producing these hormones and produces too much insulin. And over time, its cells, the islet of Langerhans, secrete less and less insulin, and type 2 diabetes develops. And it is important to know that prediabetes is a reversible status, so it is therefore important to take in charge prediabetics before they reach the diabetic stage.
So what is Pep2Dia, or new bioactive ingredient for the glycemia management? So Pep2Dia is a work between La Rochelle University and Ingredia. It has started in 2015 with a patent publication by La Rochelle University in a specific dipeptide with properties on alpha-glucosidase inhibition. Between 2016 and 2019, Ingredia and La Rochelle University worked together to develop Pep2Dia, a natural hydrolysate of native way with an active and patented dipeptide AP, AP for alanine proline, which inhibits the alpha-glucosidase activity. In 2018 and 2019, Ingredia performed preclinical studies and a first clinical study on Pep2Dia to prove this efficacy on the regulation of blood sugar level after meals without any side effects. In 2020, we performed a study to validate the mechanism of action, and this year, 2021, we performed a second clinical study, and it was a dose effect study. So Pep2Dia is designated for people willing to keep an healthy blood sugar levels.
So as Julie said, we will perform different clinical studies to demonstrate the efficacy of Pep2Dia, and I will present you the main result of this study. So in 2019, we performed the first clinical study in 2 phases. The phase 1 was an acute one to evaluate the efficacy of Pep2Dia on blood sugar management. And we observed that Pep2Dia at 1.4 gram significantly decreases postprandial glycemia. Indeed, the IAUC of glucose is reduced by 21% in Pep2Dia group compared to placebo group. The phase 2 was an open trial, so 6 weeks of supplementation with Pep2Dia, with 21 volunteers with glucose intolerance. And we asked no dietary and lifestyle habit changes in order to be sure that if we observe something, it will be linked to our product. So these 21 volunteers took 1.4 gram of Pep2Dia before lunch during 6 weeks. And at the end of these 6 weeks of supplementation, we measured the glycated hemoglobin that is a good indicator on the blood glucose control over several months. For the people we recruited inside this clinical study, it was 21 volunteers with glucose intolerance, so with a mean glycated hemoglobin at 5.8%, a mean fasting plasma glucose at 1.1 gram per liter. The people were not under high pressure condition, and if they were treated with an hypertensive drugs, so the blood pressure was stable. And it was overweight people above 14 years old that are the main risk factors to develop type 2 diabetes. So we measured the glycated hemoglobin, that is the gold standard for glycemic measurements, and we compare this value before treatment and after treatment with Pep2Dia. And we can see that there is a decrease of the glycated hemoglobin after 6 weeks of supplementation with Pep2Dia, which is a key parameter to diagnose diabetes and glucose intolerance. So take Pep2Dia, decrease the risk to become type 2 diabetics. In 2021, we performed another clinical study to test the dose effect of Pep2Dia. It was a crossover study with 7 days washout, a double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized and acute study with 36 volunteers. And as for the previous studies, it was overweight people, above 14 years old and with glucose intolerance. And there were 3 groups in these studies, 2 different dosage of Pep2Dia, 700 mg and 1400 mg, and a placebo group. And for the protocol, Pep2Dia is taken 15 minutes before a breakfast rich in sugar, and we follow the blood sugar kinetics. As it is well known in the literature, there is a high variability in pre-diabetic population. Different data have shown that there is 15% of responders inside this population. And in our population, we distinguish 2 types of profile, responders and non-responders. So in this study, we have 15 responders, and we can see that in this population of responders, we have a decrease of the glucose concentration over time. The AUC is reduced by 31% in Pep2Dia at 1400 mg and reduced by 34% in Pep2Dia at 700 mg. So Pep2Dia at these 2 dosage act on the IAUC of glucose and on the maximum increase in glucose. So this clinical study have shown that Pep2Dia is efficient at 700 mg before meals on people with glucose intolerance, and our clinical studies reported no adverse events and side effects. So this data confirmed that Pep2Dia acts on the main factors leading to type 2 diabetes and helps people with glucose intolerance to improve their health.
So now regarding regulation and application. So first, for the regulation, it's a patented ingredient with a patent on a composition with the dipeptide AP and its activity on the alpha-glucosidase. It's a clean labeling ingredient, whey protein hydrolysate, and it's a food-grade ingredient, not novel food in Europe, with GRAS self-declaration and NDA registration approved by US FDA. For the application, it's really easy to use it in food supplement, in capsule, tablets. We can also use it in sachet, for example, instant drink, thanks to these really good hydration properties. And we can also use it in beverage, for example, liquid shot. For beverage, we have performed a preclinical study to be sure we are still bioactive after each treatment. So for this preclinical study, we follow the glycemia kinetic after to consume Pep2Dia and a sugar shot. We have different conditions. So in blue, we have the control, only water without active molecules. In red, we have a positive control with acarbose. And after the other condition, it's with Pep2Dia. First, in green, it's Pep2Dia powder without any heat treatment. In pink, it's Pep2Dia after heat treatment in neutral condition. In yellow, it's Pep2Dia with stabilizer and after heat treatment. And in light blue, it's Pep2Dia after heat treatment with stabilizer and in acid condition. And as we can see on the graph, if we compare with the control, with Pep2Dia powder, we have significantly reduced the glycemia kinetic, as we can see on our previous data. And with the condition with heat treatment, we see we keep the same effect. We have a significant reduction of the glycemia kinetic. So that means we are still bioactive after heat treatment with Pep2Dia, and so we can use Pep2Dia in beverage without any impact on the efficacy of the product. We also perform shelf life stability. So for this study, we measure the APD peptide content in your powder after production and 27 months after this production. The APD peptide is our bioactive marker. And as we can see on the table, we see we have the same amount of APD peptide after 2 years of storage in normal condition. So Pep2Dia is easy to use and it's a stable ingredient. And to conclude for the application, we have worked on a lemon flavor powder sachet with 1.4 grams of Pep2Dia. We can use it in cold water, and also we can just radiate the powder and drink it just before or at the beginning of the meal. And if you want to try it, we have sample on our booth G100, so don't hesitate to visit us.
So to conclude, to keep diabetes at bay, it is important to treat your body with a healthy lifestyle. For example, by creating the right eating habits, eating more fruits and vegetables, whole grain products, and by favoring foods with low glycemic index. By drinking water, tea or coffee, and stay away from soda and sweet beverage. By keeping a healthy body weight, doing physical activity as much as you can, and by taking 700 milligrams of Pep2Dia before meals. So thank you for your attention.